Wringer Chapter 32. He awoke to Nipper pecking at his ear, and just in time. His father, earliest bird in the house, was coming down the stairs. He scooped up his pigeon and crouched behind the sofa. When his father passed into the kitchen, he dashed up the steps and into his room. Glancing around, he saw no evidence of night visitors. The window screen was firmly shut. Everything was in its place. Except for one thing, as he soon found out. He hadn't even had breakfast yet when the doorbell rang. As soon as he opened the door, he found himself facing the Nerf basketball. Curling around it were Bean's fingers. "Who's Nipper?" Palmer could not think fast enough. Beans pressed the ball into Palmer's nose. "Who wrote this?" He did not want to get Dorothy involved. "I did," he said. "So, who's Nipper?" Palmer blurted the first thing that came to mind. "Me. It used to be my nickname when I was little." He looked at them all. "Before I knew you guys." Mutto stepped up beside Beans. "We think Nipper's a pigeon." Palmer made a shocked face. "Pigeon? What would I do with a pigeon?" "What would you do with that cereal and nachos you got in your room?" said Beans. Palmer laughed, showing them how wrong they were. "Snacks. I keep stuff in my room so I don't have to go all the way down to the kitchen." He wanted to kick himself for forgetting about Nipper's food. "And where were you last night?" said Beans. It occurred to Palmer that he had a right to questions of his own. "Where was I? Where were you?" He glanced at Henry. Henry's face showed nothing. "Where did you get my ball?" Beans grinned. "We came to see you last night." "You weren't there," said Mutto. Palmer nodded. "I know. I was sleeping overnight at somebody's. My cousin's. I wasn't there." Henry was staring at the sky. Palmer saw Henry for what he was. A captive. Strong enough to warn him about last night, but too weak to do anything except follow Beans. He saw in Henry something of himself, and worse, what he could become. Beans scowled at the ball, at Palmer. "You ain't Nipper. You're Snots." He dropped the ball to the ground and stepped on it. When he raised his foot, the foam ball reclaimed its roundness. Beans cursed and stomped on the ball with both feet, flattening it, grinding it into the sidewalk. For a full minute he grunted with the effort, and again the ball popped back into shape. He kicked it away. He yanked on Palmer's arm. "Let's go. We gotta find Farquhar." They found Farquhar in front of the deli, eating chocolate cupcakes and drinking Coke. Beans announced, pointing to Palmer, "Birthday boy, 10 years old." Slouched against the deli window, Farquhar took a swig of Coke. He swished it around in his mouth. He raised his upper lip, giving himself a rodent-like face, and spit a thin stream of Coke between his front teeth. The boys shot backward. Farquhar peered at Palmer. "Wringer, huh?" Palmer did not answer. "He needs the treatment," said Beans. Farquhar glared. "You Russian me?" Beans spread his arms. "No, I'm just saying." Farquhar bit a cupcake in half. Chocolate icing covered his teeth. "What's it look like I'm doing?" "Eatin'," replied Beans tentatively. "Eatin' breakfast," said Farquhar, washing down his mouthful with Coke. The boys took another step back. "You don't say nothin' while I'm eatin' breakfast. You understand?" All four boys nodded. They retreated to the curb and sat down facing the street, not daring to even look at Farquhar. After a long time they heard his voice. "Okay." They turned. He was walking up the sidewalk. They got up and followed. He turned into an air shaft between two storefronts and went back to the alley. He stopped. He backed away from them, making space. All faces were grim. and no one spoke. Farquhar pointed to the ground in front of him. He looked into Palmer's eyes. "Step up." Palmer stepped up. "Right or left?" "Left." "Roll it up." He rolled his left sleeve up to the shoulder. He blinked several times. He looked around. He rolled his sleeve back down. He took a step back. He shook his head. Farquhar's brow pinched in surprise. "What?" "No," said Palmer. The word came out choked and dry. "No," said Farquhar. A chocolate crumb was wedged between his front teeth. "No," said Palmer, clearly this time. He heard shuffling behind him. "No what?" "No what?" Palmer moved away from them all, facing them all. They stared at him, waiting. He saw the foot grinding the ball, the name into the sidewalk. He heard the scream, heard it coming a split second before the others heard it. The scream that he knew now had been growing inside him for a long time. He planted his feet and bent his knees and balled his fists and let it come all the way out. "No, nothing. No treatment, no ringer, no snots." He thrust his scream at Beans. "I'm not Snots. My name is Palmer. My name is Palmer." He stepped back. He hunkered down. "No!" Then he ran. Down the alleys, down the streets. He ran like he had never run before. If Farquhar was with them, he would be caught. He knew that. But if not, he might be able to outrun the guys. He heard their sneakers slapping the pavement behind him. He heard their calls. "You're dead meat, Snots! I'm going to eat that pigeon of yours. I'm going to wring its neck and pull its head off. I'm pulling your head off." He ran, and he ran.